More and more we are seeing resolution to divorces can be amicable through mediation, through collaborative law, and using a divorce coach also really helps that process, because I try and get the client to put themselves in their shoes so that we're being more objective and impartial.
Sometimes people will ask me, what do I think? Do I think they should get a divorce? And obviously I can't make that decision for them. And I say, well, I know the question, I don't know the answer. And the question is...
I'm Jennifer Devine, and this is a Successfou podcast. Divorce isn't just a legal process. It's emotional, financial, and deeply personal. And that's why I'm bringing you this conversation today. My guest is Hero LOMAS, a partner at Expatriate Law in London and a family lawyer with serious pedigree. She's a solicitor, collaborative lawyer, accredited mediator, and she's who I would send a friend to if they were scared, cut off financially, and unsure of the future. Divorce survival coach Arabella Paul is with us. Arabella helps people navigate all of it. Her focus is on helping you not just survive, but thrive. Whether you're at the start, the middle, or aftermath of a breakup, or just supporting someone who is, this conversation is for you. Hi, Arabella. Hi, Hero. Welcome to the Successful podcast. So Hero is a divorce lawyer and Arabella is known as a divorce survival coach. Let's start with you, Hero. Tell me a little bit about being a divorce lawyer, what brought you to being a divorce lawyer, and why you love being a divorce lawyer.
I started by watching LA Law and Ally McBeal as a child, and that made me want to go into law. Obviously, it's not really like that. When I did my training contract, you have to do seats in different departments. And I realised that I like the departments and areas of law which were about people. And that led me to family law, and which I love. It's interesting and I feel like I'm really making a difference to people's lives.
Nice. And how about you, Arabella?
My company is called the Divorce Survival Coach.
Divorce Survival Coach.
I'm divorce coach.
Right. I always say life coach because I did life coaching for a while. So whenever I think of coach, life always comes in front of it.
Essentially, it is life coaching, but with a niche in breakups and divorce.
Right. So what brought you to that? Because you have a background in finance.
That's right. Yeah. So initially I worked in investment banking on the trading floor. But I took time out, I had my children, and then I got divorced. That was 5 years ago now. I had to go back to work and I fell into headhunting, and unfortunately I was made redundant, so I decided to retrain. I wanted to help other people going through divorce like me, helping them emotionally and also practically through this process.
How do you find your clients? How do they find you? And what do you specifically help them with? And at what stage do they come to you for?
Well, first of all, they could come at any stage, really. They could come when they haven't even decided yet if they want to get a divorce. They could come to me because a divorce lawyer has signposted them to me because they've noticed they need emotional help. They're perhaps overwhelmed by that. They could even come to me when the divorce papers are signed and they're feeling a bit stuck and not sure about what to do next and thinking they should be elated or feeling something at that point. But often people are surprised because they think, oh, well, now there's nothing. But actually, it could be a really good chapter, the next chapter.
What about if they're just thinking about divorce? Do they come to you and can you help them and advise them on what steps to take?
Absolutely. And if they're thinking about divorce, but they haven't completely decided if their relationship is over, I firstly say, please go away with your husband or wife and spend 3 months giving it everything you can. And then if you've still decided that it's not a marriage for you, then you'll have no regrets. And then if they come to me at that stage, I can signpost them to really good, highly rated divorce lawyers such as Hero. And I can put them in touch with financial advisors. I call it a divorce course circle. And we get a whole lot of people in their corner, and it's really supporting them through the process. They often want to see maybe a therapist if there's some trauma from the past. I can't deal with trauma because I'm a coach and I'm really about moving forward and dealing with the current emotions. But yes, I can set them up, take them through the process. I can't give any legal advice. I will talk to Hero or other first-rated lawyers for that. And I can really put them on the path and help them with all the paperwork and everything, as well as the emotions they're going through.
As a coach for divorce, a survival coach, what are sort of the skills you need in that occupation? Like, what's the most important skills you need to do what you do?
Well, effective listening, really knowing So what's going on in their life, really from start to finish. You need to have a full picture of the relationship right from the beginning. So you get an idea of both parties, their communication styles, maybe behavioural traits that they're not noticing that's been going on. And also an ability to wait, pause, don't always jump in with solutions, because the idea is that you're offering up options and it's for them to make the decisions going forward.
And what would you define as a successful divorce? Like on the other side of it, how is that defined? What is success to you in divorce?
Well, for me, it's going through divorce with dignity. It's also being able to carry your children through that without bad-mouthing your ex, so that your children can be happy and comfortable to love both parents equally and everybody gets along. I mean, that's the ultimate goal. Obviously, in so many situations, that can't happen, but I think that's what you strive for.
And what percentage of the time do you see that sort of outcome where it is they get to the other side and they're like, actually, this isn't so bad?
Well, more and more we are seeing resolution to divorces. And so I would say maybe if you're talking percentage, or maybe 80%, can be amicable through the mediation, through collaborative law. And using a divorce coach also really helps that process, because I try and get the ex's point of view as well, if they can, or put themselves in their shoes, so that we're being more objective and impartial.
Okay. And so, Hero, with you, I want to jump right into divorce from the divorce lawyer's standpoint. When people come to you, what percentage of the time are they 100%, I'm getting a divorce?
They're about 99% sure by the time they've walked through my door. Sometimes people will ask me, it's quite rare, but sometimes people will ask me, what do I think? Do I think they should get a divorce? And obviously, I can't make that decision for them. I say, well, I know the question, I don't know the answer. And the question is this relationship acceptable to me? And often when they've asked themselves that question, they already know that it's not. So it's quite rare that I will be sending people to a relationship counsellor, because by the time they've got to me, it's too late.
From your experience, who usually initiates a divorce? Is there any sort of averages between the man starts it or the woman starts it?
Well, the woman is usually the one who issues the divorce application, but that doesn't necessarily mean that she was the one who instigated the divorce. I would say it's about 50-50, really.
And so to be a divorce lawyer, what are some of the most important characteristics to do what you do? Obviously, you need a university education to make you qualified to practice divorce
I think
in your
the
jurisdiction.
skills that you need are to be a good listener, as Arabella said, and to be empathetic. But you also have to remember what the law is and not take on your client's emotions too much, because that will stop you from being able to give them good advice. Sometimes it's not about what's just in these cases. We have to always have in our minds the legal framework and what the court are likely to do, because there's no point spending thousands of pounds trying to get an outcome because you feel that's the just outcome. You need to look at what are the court likely to order and then try and get an agreement which is within the bracket of what the court are likely to order.
This is sort of off-piste, but have you ever had to represent someone who was a narcissist and they just wanted everything, wanted the kids just to, just in revenge against their partner?
Absolutely.
And how do you deal with that?
Well, I mean,
from a personal standpoint.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they need representation as much as anyone else does. I will try to talk to them about keeping emotions out of it and about what a court is likely to order. But ultimately, I am there to represent them. And if that's the case that they want to put forward, I will advise them about what I think the outcome is likely to be. But I have to take their instruction.
And do either of you have any advice or insight into how to avoid divorce? Someone knows that's always an option. And getting married, no one gets married thinking someday I'll get divorced. They think, I'm going to live happily ever after. But for those people who have been married and are like, how do they, and they don't want to get a divorce, but sometimes divorce is inevitable, obviously, because a lot of people are divorcing. What would you say to those people? How not to get a divorce? To the men, to the women, or to the male? I mean, I know I'm making these general statements about men. I know not just men and women get married. There's same-sex marriages, etc. But maybe I should say feminine and masculine energy.
I'm not sure I'm the best place to answer that, but I would just say, put a lot of effort into it. You know, even if you feel like you're putting 70% in, just put all the effort you can possibly put into the relationship. But sometimes people change, and it's just inevitable that you will get divorced.
Yeah. How about you, Arabella?
I think it takes two to make a good relationship. So you both have to put everything you've got into it. And if one of you wants a divorce, the other one can't stop that happening.
And for those people who have kids and they're at the door of divorce, how do they go through the divorce without messing up their kids?
Well, try to do it as amicably as possible. Don't ever talk about your spouse negatively in front of the children. They have bigger ears than you think, and try and get to a situation where the children are seeing both parents for a decent amount of time, having overnight contact with them, going on holidays with them. Try not to hate each other too much.
Oh, yeah, sorry to interject here, but one of my favourite quotes I read somewhere was, love your children more than you hate your ex.
I like that.
So,
love your children more than you hate your ex.
So put your children and the end game and what is the outcome for them. Put them at the forefront of every decision, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's not actually divorce which hurts the children, it's the conflict between their parents. So
I guess their foundation breaks, doesn't it, a bit? Being a child of divorce, I remember feeling just suddenly unstable as a 13-year-old when my parents divorced, even though they had a horrible marriage. It couldn't have been worse, but it just suddenly your foundation feels shaky, doesn't it?
And sometimes it is the best thing for a child, because you don't want to model a dysfunctional relationship.
Yeah, absolutely.
We need to rebrand divorce not as a failure, but wouldn't it be more of a failure to stay in a relationship where you were really unhappy?
Yeah,
I agree. And also the children love both parents 50-50. And so more than anything, they want them to be friends, or at least for it to look like friends.
Yeah.
Because they love you both. So they don't want you to hate each other.
Yeah, exactly. So co-parenting. What are the most effective co-parenting strategies you've both seen with divorce?
I think it's keeping an open line of communication. A lot of families have both parents have the children 50-50 now. Just keeping the same rules. So across the household, if there's another step parent that comes in, I think personally on that front, because my children have a stepmother, keep a really open mind about that. I feel that rather than worry that takes any love away from me, I feel that the love my children have doubles, and there's room for them to love lots of people. Yeah. And therefore lots of people can love them. And I think it's a good thing. Lots of adults loving them. And I'm lucky that she loves my children too.
Yeah. That point, what are some successful strategies post-divorce for blending families that either of you have found personally, or what you've seen in your clients? Have you seen any perfect solution?
I don't think the perfect solution exists. We have a blended family, but I prefer to call it a patchwork family, because that's more like the reality of it. I think you have to realise that it takes time, and you have to introduce the other person quite slowly and carefully. It's a good idea to tell the other parent, so your children's other parent, before that introduction is made, just so that when the children announce it over dinner or something, I've just met Robbie or whoever it might be, that the other parent doesn't appear too surprised, because they might take that as a negative emotion, and then that will cause them to be stressed about it. But I think the main thing is it takes time, and it's never going to be perfect, but
I mean, even in happy marriages, when you have kids, kids have a lot of emotions, and teenagers have a lot of emotions and impulses. And so even in two happily married parents, you're going to have kids who try to be divisive, create conflict, don't like one parent or the other at any point in time. So yeah, I guess it's kind of a moot point. Did you want to say anything about that, Arabella?
I think a lot of the points that Hero has mentioned are very valid. Yeah, I think also if you can, take time out for yourself as a couple, because that could put, like you say, strains on your own relationship. And I think the person coming into the child's life shouldn't become somebody who's a person of authority necessarily and telling them what to do, but they should be someone who's a supportive adult who is around. And I don't think you should force it. It should just happen organically, if you can.
Sometimes it's just not possible to co-parent with the other parent. There might be a case where one parent is very abusive, you've had a particularly difficult divorce, and it's just not the reality, and you're going to have to accept that you will be parallel parenting. That means just in your house, you have your rules and you do it your way. And then the other parent has their rules and does it their way.
Kids get used to learning what works for one parent versus the other.
And don't beat yourself up if you're not, the parents who are going, happily to school events together. Sometimes it just won't happen.
Oh, let's talk about school events for a second. So what do you do if your ex-partner brings his new babe to the school event for your child?
That's a tricky one.
I mean, going back to dignity, I think you conduct yourself with dignity and you fake it till you make it, really. You smile, you're perfectly friendly and pleasant, and you put on a show. And it makes everyone feel more comfortable, or your children feel more comfortable.
Yeah, most importantly.
You don't want them, perhaps in a play, thinking, oh my God, I'm so worried. You want them to think everything's all right. So
yeah.
Just, even if it goes against every fibre of your being, you do it for your children.
Yeah.
You don't have to have long conversations with them if it makes you feel very uncomfortable. Just a polite hello, how are you? And then you can move on.
That's really good advice.
You don't have to sit next to each other. In fact, often, it doesn't matter if you do. As long as, if you both want to come, you can both go. The child would love that if that's the case.
Yeah, I'd imagine it'd be conflicting. You're with someone for 20 years and then you see them with someone else.
Yeah, it is difficult. And, we always appreciate that. But the advice I would give is just to pretend, be polite, because the last thing you want is for your children to say, I don't want you to come to this event with daddy because it will be awkward.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you miss out.
Yeah, exactly. So kind of shifting gear and giving all those people facing divorce a bit of hope and positivity, because there are, with every ending, there is a new beginning and there can be a new fresh outlook. And, I always say the best of my life is yet to come. There could also be the best of their life is yet to come. We tend to think we get to a certain age, stuff happens, and the best is behind me. What surprising positive outcomes have you seen happen as a result of divorce?
I think people become a lot stronger. So I see people come see me in their first meeting, they're extremely frightened. They're in a terrible place emotionally. And by the time we've got to the end of it, they're independent. Maybe they've gone back to work. Maybe they've met someone else. And I see the sort of whole spectrum of them recovering from divorce and actually thriving.
Yeah, and really growing and blossoming in different ways. Yeah, that's cool. I've seen that as well. How about you, Arabella?
Well, in the same way, resilient. And yes, people often, they start a new business or they go back to work and their life can take off in a way they never thought of it before. They maybe hang out with different people. I mean, I'm not saying they stop being friends with people they already are friends with, but you meet new people when you get divorced and your eyes are open to doing new things. You might travel to places that you never went to with your ex because they didn't want to go. And what I like to do with my clients is create a bucket list. And that's all the things that you really wanted to do, but you would never have done in your old relationships. You've got something to look forward to.
Yeah, just creating new possibilities and new dreams.
Exactly.
What about the financial side? So is it true that financial issues are the number one cause that drives people to divorce? Financial considerations? Or is it cheating?
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't even say that it was cheating. I just think that people change and people grow out of their relationships. It can be cheating. I haven't really seen any financial considerations leading people to divorce.
Oh, really?
I've seen cheating. I've seen a lot of other things, abusive relationships.
With regard to growing apart and changing, we're seeing the rise of what's known as either the grey divorce or the silver splitters. And that's really people who are 50 or older. And that's on the increase because I think women are becoming more dependent and they're opening their eyes to the fact that people are living longer and they don't want to be with that person for as long. So I think women are making that decision more, and with menopause as well.
So what is it called? The silver
splitters or the grey divorce.
So there's synonymous terms for the same thing. Yes. So over 50s divorcing.
Well, they say over 50s, but I mean, I'm approaching 50 this year and I haven't got a silver hair. I think really it could be the over 60s.
Oh, interesting. So that's an interesting trend. And speaking about trends, have you seen a lot of divorces or any rise in divorces that are a result of coercive control?
Yes, I have. I think they were probably existed anyway, but people didn't really know much about coercive control.
Actually, that's a good point. Can you define what coercive control is?
So it's a pattern of behaviours. So it can be different things. It can be financial abuse, not giving your spouse access to any money, not allowing them to meet their friends, not allowing them to wear what they want. It can be, lots of different ways this can play out. We used to think of it as domestic violence, but actually it's much more insidious than that. And these other behaviours, it's more difficult for people to recognise that it's domestic abuse because they're not being
Physically, yeah.
And then it's very easy to say, okay, well, that's wrong. These things come on very gradually and they get worse over time.
Wow. And how about you? Have you seen a lot of damage as a result of coercive control leading to divorce with your clients?
Absolutely, yeah. But a lot of clients come to me and they don't know it's happening. And we talk through what's going on for them. And that's why I need to hear the whole story and the marriage story, really, to find out what's going on. And then I will never say anything to them, oh, this is domestic abuse. But I might say, that's interesting. And they might think about it a bit more and go away and have a think and realise that perhaps what they're going through isn't normal. I think when you're in a marriage and the way it is, you normalise that. You think that's what everyone else is going through. And it's only when you perhaps talk to someone else about it or you leave the marriage and you look back on it, then you realise you see it for the way it was.
Hi, it's Jennifer Devine, and you're listening to the Successfou podcast. Thank you so much for being here. It means a lot to me. If you're liking the content, let me know by hitting the like button. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. And then you won't miss out on any future episodes. And if there's someone you think could benefit from this information or watching and listening and finding inspirational, please share it with them. Now, let's get back to the show. So, coming from both of your areas of expertise in divorce, if someone was getting married, like your daughters or your sons, what advice would you give them before they get married to avoid some of the common pitfalls or ending up 10 years down the line being like, we are not compatible, we don't share the same values, or whatever it may be? What advice would you give them to pick wisely? Is there a pick wisely, or you just don't know?
I suppose it's someone who will help you with the children and support your career. That's one piece of advice that I'd give to people. Especially women who are getting married. Don't sacrifice your own career for your husband, because if you get divorced later down the line, you will get maintenance for a few years, if that. Maybe you've had your career on the back burner for 15 years, and maybe you can't get back into a good career in your mid-50s. So you really need to focus on your own career as well.
Wow, that is very good advice.
I would want my children to know the red flags to look out for. I think when we were all younger, we didn't really think about that. We just thought, oh, I'm in love and this is great. And
they're hot.
Thing that was a bit off, you thought, oh, it doesn't matter, I love him. I might even consider saying to my children, think about a prenup.
Yeah.
They're becoming more and more important. More people are doing.
Yeah.
The hero probably has more to say about prenup.
Yeah, and do prenups protect you? And if you are creating a prenup, what should you have in it? What kind of things can it protect you against?
So it depends on what the assets are. So a common one that we see at the moment is premarital wealth will be excluded, and inherited wealth. So anything that you inherit during the marriage. They're not completely binding, prenups. If they don't meet a party's needs further down the line, then the court can make a different order. But they act as a sort of depressor of needs. So you will get less than you would have done if you hadn't entered into the prenup. If you have got significant premarital wealth, or you're likely to get a large inheritance, it's certainly worth doing one.
That doesn't mean my children necessarily get a massive inheritance. I think there are things you can put in the prenup. It could be a foundation, certainly. I think the more people who do it, the more normalised it becomes. Like, just call it a marriage contract.
There used to be a bit of a stigma attached to them, I think. And people would say, why are you having a prenup if, you're expecting your marriage to last forever? And it was seen as quite unromantic.
Yeah.
But I think that's changing now.
Yeah.
It's becoming much more common. 10 years ago, I would be maybe doing one prenup a year. And now I'm probably doing one a month.
Wow.
Yeah, there are a lot more people entering into them nowadays.
How much does it cost to get a lawyer to create a prenup for you?
it depends how complicated the prenup is and how much negotiation there is around its terms. You're probably looking at a minimum of £5,000.
Can you get a prenup post-nup?
You can. So some people will just get a post-nup, or if you're signing the prenup very close to the date of the wedding, you might get a post-nup as well, just to back it up and reinforce it.
So if you are married for a long time, you're married 20 years, you have kids, you gave up your very lucrative career early on to have children and be the stay-at-home mom, mother, everything, saint, because let's face it, that's what moms are doing, really. And then you get divorced. What are the courts like? Let's say your kids are just a few years from being adults themselves. What is the likelihood that you will get compensation that gives you enough time to create a career or go back to work? Obviously, no one's hiring a 50-year-old woman in the same way they'd hire a 27-year-old master's graduate in the same thing. We all know it's not happening, right? We know that. But in whatever capacity, what have you seen for a law of averages that is a likelihood?
I think that the law in this area is quite unfair to the person who, and it's usually the woman, who has given up their career for 15, 20 years to look after the children. And she can't go back into her previous type of salary, or she hasn't got that earning capacity. The law is that she needs to have maintenance so that she can adjust to independent living. But that time frame is becoming shorter and shorter. So you're seeing maintenance orders for maybe 3 years, 5 years. And then after that, then they're just having, a fraction perhaps of what their husband is earning.
So do they have to give up the family home as well?
So that's a separate part of it. That will be the capital split. So it depends how much capital is available. And they will, in all likelihood, get a pension sharing order. So they will be entitled to, the starting point is half the capital, potentially a bit more if they need more, and half the pension, the marital pension. But in terms of maintenance, their income, I think it can be quite mean to spouses who've given up their careers in that way. Yeah.
Do you think it's better in America?
Depends on the state.
Oh, is it state dependent? Yeah, I guess that makes sense, of course.
It's different in each state. Some states are definitely, the position will be even worse for women. Some states it's similar.
Back to sort of the unexpected positives. Someone's 30, 40, they get divorced. They've been married so long. Maybe they got married out of uni. Maybe they didn't even have that many boyfriends before they got married. What advice would you have for them? What can they look forward to? What should they do? They really feel lost. Their whole identity has been intertwined with this person who just decided they met a better, younger version and they're moving on. They're getting divorced and, kids or no kids, they'll sort it out. What do you have? What advice do you have for those women or men? I realize it's not just women who end up in that predicament.
Well, you mentioned identity, and with that, I think comes self-confidence as well. And so to begin with, I would want my client to start taking some responsibility. So it might have been done throughout the relationship. The partner made a lot of the decisions. And so I would want them to start making decisions for themselves, and then things that could make them more confident or feel better about themselves. So, for example, you could think about maybe redecorating a room in the house, moving the furniture around, going to a hairdresser and getting a new hairstyle, getting a new wardrobe, seeing a personal dresser, taking on a new hobby, something that just takes them into that area of doing something for themselves and making a decision for themselves.
Taking their power back a bit.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's good advice. And then just the happy days of how do you meet someone post-divorce? I don't even know what middle age is anymore. Is middle age 50 or is middle age 30?
Sure, it's 50 plus.
It's much later. It's 60 now.
Yeah, especially if I'm planning to live to at least 100.
Exactly. Where do you go to meet people?
I would say ask all your friends. Do they have any decent single people that they can hook you up with? And apps are always a good one. Join everything you can.
Yeah.
Accept every invitation.
Yes.
That's nice.
Keep positive.
Go out of your comfort zone. Go to things you wouldn't necessarily normally go to. The apps. There are some apps at the moment that are all about not just messaging each other and then meeting, but it's going straight to a venue and like a drinks party or a dinner party or some big event. So you meet people live. That's a theme at the moment. Yeah, all your friends.
Say like attracts like, fundamental law of science, love attracts love. Do what you love and hopefully meet other people doing what they love. And then you can connect on shared passion. There should be more dating sites that are like, it's a rock climbing event. It's a trip to Paris event.
Things like that. I mean,
there.
I think there are dating ones, but there's also something called meetups, which isn't for dating, but it's for meeting like-minded people. And I have heard people have met another half there. It's much better than it used to be maybe 20 years ago with the advent of all these apps. But I had a friend once who said, oh, I really want a boyfriend. But she didn't go out. You have to get out there.
You have to put yourself out there.
Meet someone sitting at home in your living room watching television.
Yeah, Prince Charming isn't come knocking on your door.
That doesn't happen.
I knew someone as well who said, well, I'll go on the apps when I've lost weight. And then that didn't happen. And it's sort of 8 years later. Get yourself out there.
Yeah. When I got divorced, I likened it to putting a new car or an old car on the market. You iron out the dents and the new coat of paint and then put yourself on the market and see what happens.
Yeah. When you first were approaching your own personal divorce, if you don't mind me asking, that sort of shaky time, because you're vulnerable, right? Big life changes make us vulnerable and a little scared, like, oh my gosh. And even as a divorce lawyer, because you got divorced and you were already a divorce lawyer, right?
That's right.
Did you see the writing on the wall more clearly than most would have? Or did it hit you like a surprise as it suddenly came up as well?
Well, I had an advantage in that I knew the legal framework and I knew exactly what would happen. So, when I went to court, I knew where to sit, I knew what would happen, and I knew what I would have to say. But I still felt very nervous. And that really helped me understand how my clients must feel when they don't have any of that knowledge.
Yeah.
So it definitely helped me having that background.
Yeah. How about you, Arabella, when that first came, on your plate, oh, I'm headed for divorce?
Well, I'm quite a doer, so I immediately started to strategize and plan and think, where could I live? I knew I wouldn't be able to afford to stay in the house we had. I couldn't afford the bills. So yes, I set to work in my mind, just sort of planning. Obviously, I was devastated as well. Devastated for my children in particular and what life would be like for them. But actually, looking back, I shouldn't have worried about them at all. They're so happy. They are very happy with having 2 households and 2 families. So yeah, I shouldn't have worried about them. But you do, because you're a mother and that's the first thought. But they recommend as well that you don't date immediately, that you heal. And then also you have time to reflect about what went right and what went wrong in the relationship, so you can improve things in future relationships.
Yeah.
I didn't start dating until my case had finished. So all the legal side of things was completely out of the way. And then I thought, okay, now I'm ready to start moving on and moving on with my life.
What's the first thing you did?
I went on holiday.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Did you do a family holiday? You just went on a girls' holiday? Or you
Both.
Oh,
All
nice.
those things.
Yeah, started booking the holidays. The new me in this new space. I love it. That's great advice.
I couldn't do that because it was COVID.
Oh, right. So you probably felt more trapped. I mean, we all felt trapped in COVID, but to be in such a vulnerable situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was on the phone a lot, to Hero a lot, as other friends too, and Zoom calls.
Yeah.
So yes, I was constantly speaking to people, but just not in person.
Were there a lot of divorces in COVID? I got sort of mixed historical research reviews on my AI apps I use for research.
There were, yes. I think people were forced to spend a lot of time together. There were definitely a lot of divorces, a few months in. We were very busy dealing with contact issues. So, a mother who said, well, you can't go to the father's because he's a pilot and he might be bringing COVID home and I'm vulnerable. Or a mother who went up to Manchester with the children and said, I can't come back because of COVID, and there's lots of COVID in London. So I was extremely busy during COVID, and the courts weren't functioning properly.
Right.
Going to arbitration.
Was it all online arbitration or?
So everything came online. So all our cases were then, we're doing them online. And actually that's been quite a good thing because that's continued. Even after COVID, and it makes it much more economic for lawyers not to have to travel so far and not to have to sort of wait around charging their clients by the hour while they're waiting around for the judge to be ready.
If there's 3 answers or tasks that someone needs to hit immediately You're approaching divorce. It's inevitable. Do this, this, and this as either a support construct or a to-do list. And also at the end of it, just know any vision you can create, you can have on the other side of the divorce, and not to give up on that.
If you're thinking about divorce, what should you do? My first answer to that would be see a lawyer, find out what your rights are. So then you can know more or less what a settlement would look like and what your outcome will be.
And is it costly to talk to a lawyer that first time, or do most lawyers have sort of a free first chat?
Yeah, a lot of lawyers will have a quick chat with you over the phone for free.
And what if your husband or wife has already gone to every top lawyer in town?
It's hard to have gone to all of them in London.
Yes.
There are lots of very good lawyers in London.
But is it true that when someone calls you, you then can't speak to their spouse, even if you're not hired?
You shouldn't.
Okay.
I'm having an issue about that at the moment with one of my clients who went to see a firm, and then her husband subsequently instructed them. And when they did the conflict check, they spelled her name wrongly. So we're having an issue about that at the moment. But generally, they shouldn't accept instructions. I mean, that becomes an issue in somewhere like Singapore, where you've only got a handful of good lawyers. But in London, you'll always find a good lawyer. Your spouse can't have gone to all of them.
Yeah. Where do you go to find a lawyer? Like, where is the directory for divorce lawyers?
I think what you should do is start by asking friends.
Yeah.
You know, who did you use? And that's the best way. I think your friends who are divorced.
I know it depends on assets, but is there a ballpark figure on what a divorce starts at, how much it's going to cost? And I know it can be infinite numbers.
I mean, so if you come to me and you say, okay, my husband and I are getting divorced, we've reached this agreement on our finances, here are all the assets, I've provided all the documentation to you, and I look at this, talk it through with you, it all seems eminently sensible and reasonable. I can probably draw up the paperwork for you, and you can have that sorted out for a few £1,000s. That is quite unusual. And certainly the cases that I'm getting involved with are more complicated. You don't necessarily agree the values of assets. Sometimes you don't agree. For example, I'm valuing some land at the moment in Lombok. We can't agree the size of the land which is owned. We haven't agreed the identity of the valuer. So even getting to the part where you have, it's called a computation of assets, where you've agreed what the assets are and how much they are worth. You can spend thousands of pounds in that stage before you even start negotiating what's a reasonable settlement.
Like, you were in investment banking, right? So you were a high income earner when you got married.
Yes.
And then you stopped to look after the kids.
Yes.
So you didn't really have an income. So does that matter in the divorce when it comes to compensation? Like, how much you made and how much you gave up and how much you'd be worth today had you not given that up?
There is a compensation element of a divorce, but it's very hard to get that. So really the judges are looking at what are your needs. So, I mean, bad luck if you were in a high earning job before, they're going to look at what your needs are when you get divorced.
So even if you had a house, you sold it in the marriage.
Well, capital's separate, so you will get half the matrimonial capital. Usually that's the starting point. But in terms of your income and your maintenance, you're not really compensated for a job that you might have given up 20 years before.
No, of course. So it's not really a consideration. But assets that you sold in the marriage and just got absorbed into family living. Is that what it's called?
Being matrimonialized.
Matrimonialized. Does that matter?
You'll be looking at, usually the starting point is 50-50 division of all the matrimonial assets.
I still don't know what that means.
Well, there can be lots of arguments about whether an asset is matrimonial or not. For example, if you have had an inheritance during the marriage, and you have put that into an account which you both used for general living, a joint account, that has usually become matrimonialized. That's up for division with all the other matrimonial assets.
What do these women have and men have to look forward to, and what hope can we give them if they're going through divorce? How great is it? How great is it post-divorce?
Well, I'm very happy personally, but I think that you've got to have hope for the future. Everybody I spoke to and said what they wish they knew when they were starting out on their divorce. And they wish they knew that everything will be okay. It's going to be hard. It's not easy getting divorced. There's a lot that goes into that. And of course, every divorce is different, so some are easier than others. But you will go through a lot of emotions. It's a grieving process for a relationship.
Yeah.
It's like most traumatic. life event you'll go through, second to death of a loved one. So you've got to accept that there will be grief, there will be emotion, but you will get through it. And with the right people in your team, in your core circles, lawyer, divorce coach, financial advisor, trusted friends and family. And I always say an exercise buddy, because it's really important to keep healthy. It's something that you need to be fighting fit for. So that's not only exercise, that's eating well, looking after yourself, sleeping well.
Great advice.
So you're in the right spot to do the best, to feel the best, to be the best. And then as you come out the other side and things start feeling a bit easier, then you can start planning your future. And that future can be really good.
I'd imagine in marriage, you build up a lot of joint friends, right? You go out with other couples, you have a lot of collective friendship as a couple. And did you lose a lot of friends in divorce because the new couple then picks who they're going to side with, the man or the woman?
I didn't really lose a lot of friends. I think you have to accept, and it's right, that they will still be friends with your ex as well.
Yeah.
And I wasn't expecting my friends to choose.
No.
And actually, I think it was better for him that he still had all those friends, and better for my children as well.
Yes.
That those friends still were friends with both of us. So I think you can't expect your friends to choose. They shouldn't have to. It's not about who's right and wrong.
Yeah, and hopefully they don't. Hopefully they do maintain friendships with both. And that's really nice. That's a really good point. It sounds like you had a very successful divorce.
I would say so.
In that way, yeah, for sure. Did you want to add anything to that?
No, I think there's always a little bit of fallout with friendships, but I agree. You don't want them to have to choose. They can be friends with both of you. And it's great for the children to see that.
Yeah.
That just adds to that whole amicable side of things.
Yeah, especially if there's children as well who are friends with your children's friends. And yeah.
My children went recently to their dad's wedding, and they said, "Oh, mummy, so many of your friends were there. They were all asking about you." And that was great.
Yeah.
I should have to keep it a secret. And my kids felt very comfortable and happy to be going. And
That's nice.
That's how it should be.
And then, funnily enough, I think our ex-husbands got married on the same day, a new wife. And my
Did
children
they?
said exactly the same thing, because they saw lots of my friends at the wedding too. And it's nice. It's sort of a continuation of life, but with two different houses, two different lives, but
Two different sets of holidays. The kids, it's always great for the kids eventually, isn't it? Yeah. They get 2 holidays, 2 homes.
And I think you have to model your relationship values to your children, and you shouldn't accept a bad relationship.
That's good advice.
Treated badly.
Yeah, because your kids they emulate and they choose how you choose.
There was another thing that I wanted to say.
Oh, yes, please.
And it's about people whose spouses are having an affair.
Yeah, great. Yes, this hits a big demographic.
So I would always say, if they are not making an effort with the relationship, that it's better just to end it, move on, and get your divorce done quickly while they are hopefully still feeling a bit guilty, rather than waiting around for years and not doing anything, hoping that you'll reconcile. It usually doesn't work.
I love that. They've cheated, cut the line, get right in there with a divorce attorney and a divorce survival coach.
Yeah.
I love that advice. Do you have any advice that you want to say as well, like regarding the kind of scenario?
I think the biggest thing is don't badmouth your ex to your children. At all costs, try and keep it buttoned up. Don't even do it when you think they might be hearing, like you said, with big ears.
Yeah.
It really damages them, and it's not fair.
Yeah, it's not. And the truth is if you do have a spouse who is atrocious, your kids are smart. We're all raising intelligent children. They will eventually make these decisions on their own about people and personalities. Yes, but a child always needs a mom. They need a dad. They need as many people in their lives who love them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful message. Thank you. Thank you both so much. And anyone who wants to get in touch with both of you, they can find you, Arabella.
Yes, called the Divorce Survival Coach. I'm on Instagram and on Facebook. My name's Arabella Paul. You can find me on LinkedIn. I have a website, www.thedivorcesurvivalcoach.com.
And how about you? How do they get in touch with you, Hero?
So I work for a firm called Expatriate Law. Find me on the internet.
Lovely. Thank you both so much. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Successfou podcast. Every story I share is a reminder that success isn't handed out. It's built by people who are brave enough to dream and bold enough to follow that dream. People who keep going who learn and keep learning, and who lead with the heart. If something in this episode sparks something in you, pass it on to someone you care about. I'm Jennifer Devine, and I'll be back next week with more real stories and real tools and templates of success, real conversations to help you build the life you're here to live. Thanks for joining me.